On your feet, Private Brooks. The voice cracked across the barracks like a rifle shot. Boots hit the floor, metal bunks rattled, and every man froze mid-motion. Then came the laugh, low, sharp, mocking. Look at him. Can't even blouse his boots right. Hell, Brooks, did you wander in from a soup kitchen? The room erupted. Soldiers grinned, some tried to hide it, but the message was clear. He was the weakest link. Sergeant Collins stood over him, sneer etched deep, his finger jabbing the air like a knife. Men like you don't last here. Remember that. And I swear, in that silence that followed, I thought the floor might swallow me whole. Humiliation has a way of stripping the air from your lungs. In that moment, I wanted to disappear. My gear looked older than the rest. My uniform was tight in the wrong places. My accent rougher. And I knew, they had already decided I didn't belong. The barracks smelled of sweat and starch, the echoes of cadence still hanging in the air. Yet the only sound I heard was laughter at my expense. I looked down, fighting the burn in my throat, refusing to give Collins the satisfaction of seeing tears. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Corporal Ramirez watching. He didn't speak. He didn't move. But he didn't laugh either. And in this place, silence was the closest thing to mercy. The first week in boot camp will break you if you let it. They say it's supposed to strip you down so they can build you back up. But sometimes it feels like the stripping never ends. On the drill field, under the pounding sun, I fumbled the weapon carry. The M4 slipped for half a second, and Collins was on me like a wolf. You drop that rifle in combat, and you're the reason your buddy goes home in a box. You hear me, Brooks? His voice carried across the field, echoing in my skull. The squad snickered. Someone muttered, "Dead weight." My ears burned, my chest clenched, and still I said nothing. I just adjusted my grip, eyes forward. I thought that was the end of it. But humiliation doesn't end when the yelling stops. It lingers. That night in the chow hall, I sat alone with a tray of rubbery chicken and mashed potatoes that tasted like cardboard. The others bunched together, loud, alive, bonded in their shared laughter. Someone accidentally knocked their elbow into my tray, spilling gravy across my lap. Oops! Careful, Private. Don't drown in it. The table roared, my jaw locked tight. I wanted to slam, my fist down, to shout, to prove I wasn't what they thought, but I didn't. Instead, I wiped the mess, stared at the wall, and kept chewing. And then, just as I thought I'd choke on the bitterness, Ramirez slid something across the table when no one was looking. A protein bar. He didn't speak, just gave a tiny nod before turning back to his squad. A small gesture, but in that moment, it felt like a lifeline. Later that night, when the lights dimmed and boots lined the barracks in perfect rows, I sat on my bunk and quietly worked on my gear. My hands moved with care, oiling the rifle, smoothing the creases, patching the tears. The laughter of the day still echoed in my head, sharp as blades. I wanted to scream, to quit, to disappear, but I whispered instead, soft enough no one could hear. I'll prove them wrong. The words were barely sound, more promise than breath. I repeated it like a prayer, over and over, until the weight on my chest eased just enough to let me sleep. Morning came early, reveille blaring, the day starting with punishment runs. Sweat poured down my back as Collins barked cadence. 1, 2, 3, 4. The others chanted back loud and strong. My voice cracked, too soft, and Collins zeroed in. Brooks, louder! You sound like you're whispering to your pillow. The squad laughed again. I dug deeper, throat raw, lungs burning. I shouted until my voice broke. Still, it wasn't enough. But I kept moving, feet pounding pavement, chest heaving, refusing to fall out. That was the difference. They wanted me to collapse. I refused. By the third night, I knew the rhythm of humiliation like the back of my hand. Collins' sneer, the squad's laughter, the sideways glances, and still Ramirez's silence. He never defended me, never said a word. But I saw it in the way his eyes lingered, the way he looked away when the jokes cut too deep. That kind of silence spoke louder than mockery. It told me I wasn't completely invisible. Here's the thing about being underestimated. It stings. It humiliates. but it also fuels you. Every sneer, every laugh, every insult. They piled up like weights on my back. But instead of breaking me, I decided to carry them, to let them build muscle, not resentment. I kept my head down, my mouth shut, and my hands busy. Quiet strength. That's all I had. I thought humiliation would be the end of me. But what I never expected was how it would shape me. Each insult became a nail hammered into steel. Each laugh, a spark, against flint. By the end of that first week, I wasn't just surviving, I was sharpening, waiting, and deep down, I knew something was coming. Something that would change everything. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. Rain has a way of cutting right through you in training, like it knows where you're weakest. That night, it poured steady and cold as we ran the mud track, our boots sinking deeper with every step. Sergeant Collins barked over the storm, his voice sharp as thunder. "Pick it up, Brooks. You call that running? You're dragging this whole damn platoon down." My legs burned, lungs screaming for air, but I kept moving. The others glanced back with smirks, and I caught a whispered, "He won't last another week." Maybe they were right, but I pushed harder, each stride driven by humiliation I refused to let win. We hit the low crawl under barbed wire, mud swallowing us whole. The rain blurred everything, and Colin's boots stomped near my head. "You're slower than molasses in January. God help the poor bastard stuck with you in combat." He laughed. Some of the squad chuckled too, safe behind his authority. I bit my tongue and clawed forward, mud in my teeth, my pride hanging by a thread. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ramirez crawl steady, his face blank, his eyes flicking toward me. He didn't say a word, but something in that look told me he noticed I wasn't quitting. Not tonight. The next morning, Chow Hall smelled of powdered eggs and burnt toast. I sat down at the far end of the table, trying to disappear, but Collins wasn't done with me. He strutted past, coffee in hand, stopping just behind me. "Careful, men. Don't sit too close to Brooks, or you'll catch whatever disease makes him weak." Laughter spread like wildfire down the table. A spoon clanged against a tray. One recruit muttered, "Yeah, maybe it's contagious." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth, every muscle screaming at me to fight back. But instead, I chewed and stared at the scratched metal table. That silence, that restraint. It was the only weapon I had left. And then, barely noticeable, Ramirez slid half his biscuit onto my tray before anyone saw. No words, no eye contact, just a small act of defiance against the current. It wasn't much, but it kept me upright. Later that week, Collins staged another show. It was inspection day. Boots lined perfect. Under bunks, rifles spotless, uniforms crisp. He stopped in front of me, slow smile on his face like he'd been waiting. Well, look at this disgrace." He yanked my boots up, a tiny scuff on the heel, barely visible, but he pounced. "What do we have here? Did Brooks forget we're soldiers, not beggars?" These boots look like they came from a yard sale. He threw them back down with a thud. The squad roared with laughter. My ears burned, my fists clenched, but I kept my chin level. "Yes, Sergeant," was all I said. He leaned in close, his breath hot and bitter. "One day soon, you'll break, and I'll enjoy every second of it." He moved on, and I exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of my bunk to steady myself. But I saw Ramirez again, watching, silent, his jaw tight. He wasn't laughing this time. Night fell, and the barracks quieted to the hum of ceiling fans and muffled snores. I stayed awake, rifle across my lap, oil rag in hand. I worked each piece until it shone, repeating drills I'd fumbled in daylight. Over and over, fingers raw, eyes heavy, and I whispered to myself, "Quitting isn't in my vocabulary." Ramirez's voice startled me in the dark. "You don't quit, do you?" I froze, glanced up, and saw him sitting on his bunk, half hidden in shadow. His tone wasn't mocking. It was curious, maybe even respectful. "No," I said simply. He nodded once and lay back down. Nothing more. But it felt like the first crack in the wall. Days blurred into drills, runs, and endless insults. Every stumble became a show for Collins. Every mistake was amplified, thrown back at me like a curse. You're a liability, Brooks, a walking mistake. The squad laughed because it was easier than being the next target. Each time I swallowed the anger, turned it into fuel. Each night I worked longer, ran harder, practiced alone when no one was watching. I thought maybe the silence of my effort would protect me. I thought maybe they'd see. But humiliation has a way of finding you, even in the cracks. It was during the obstacle course when it all came to a head. The wall loomed tall, slick from rain. One by one, recruits scrambled up, pulled over by their buddies. When it was my turn, Collins folded his arms. Let's see if our charity case can climb higher than his welfare check. The squad laughed, waiting for me to fail. I stared at the wall, palms slick, chest pounding. I jumped, fingers scraping, slipping down into the mud. Laughter erupted, sharp and cruel. Told you! Someone shouted. My pride bled out into the dirt. I tried again, slipped again. Collins' voice cut deep. Pathetic. In combat, you'd be dead already. My body shook, exhaustion screaming at me to stop. But then I heard Ramirez, low, almost under his breath. One more, Brooks. Just 3 words. I don't even know if Collins heard them. But I did. I dug deep, mud dripping into my eyes, nails tearing skin, and clawed that wall like it was life or death. Muscles screamed, vision blurred, but somehow my hand caught the top. I pulled, legs kicking, and dragged myself over. Silence fell for a beat. Then Collins barked, "Took you long enough. Don't celebrate." He walked away, but I caught the flicker in the squad's eyes. Not laughter this time. Something else. Something shifting. That night, when lights went out, my body ached like it had been broken in half, but my chest felt different, full, steady. For the first time, I wasn't just enduring. I'd pushed back, even if no one admitted it, and deep down I felt it. The tide was turning. I wasn't the same recruit they laughed at when I walked in. Not anymore. Something was building, waiting for the moment to explode into the open. And when it came, none of them, not Collins, not the squad, not anyone, would be ready. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The day of the field exercise felt different from the start. The air was heavy, thick with humidity, and every recruit knew the test today wasn't just another drill. This one mattered. It was graded. It decided who would move forward, who would be trusted, and who would be branded as dead weight. Sergeant Collins gathered us near the tree line, his grin sharp as a blade. "Today we find out who's worth a damn," he barked. His eyes landed on me like crosshairs. "Brooks, you're carrying the radio. Let's see if you can manage not to screw this one up." Laughter rippled through the squad. I felt the weight of the PRC-77 set as he shoved it into my arms. It wasn't just heavy, it was deliberate. Everyone knew the radio was the worst job. You carried the burden, kept the comms alive, and still had to keep up with the squad. If anything went wrong, all fingers pointed at you. Collins wanted me to fail. He wanted an audience for it. We moved into the woods, boots crunching on dead leaves, rifles at the ready. Sweat ran down my back even before the first hill. Every step made the straps dig deeper into my shoulders. I stayed quiet, steady, one breath at a time. The squad muttered behind me, whispers I pretended not to hear. "He's gonna tank us." Collins set him up. I caught Ramirez glancing my way, his face unreadable, but his pace always close behind mine. He hadn't said much since training began, but somehow his presence steadied me. By mid-morning, the sun was beating down hard. Collins kept the pressure on, shouting at the squad, but always circling back to me. "Pick up your feet, Brooks. You dropped that radio, and you're the reason they all die." His voice was gasoline, trying to ignite resentment in the squad. And it worked. I saw the glares, the rolling eyes. The radio seemed to grow heavier by the mile, but I kept moving. Quitting wasn't an option. Not anymore. Then came the ambush. Blanks fired from the tree line. Simulated explosions shook the ground. Smoke grenades filled the air. Chaos erupted. "Radio! Radio!" someone shouted, and I dropped to the dirt, fumbling for the handset. Static hissed. Nothing. The radio was dead. My stomach sank. Colin's laugh cut through the gunfire. Well, what do you know? Our liability just proved me right. He raised his voice so everyone heard. No comms, no mission. You all fail because Brooks can't do his job. The squad turned toward me, panic written across their faces. Their futures tied to my failure. For a split second, I thought it was over. My humiliation, my breaking point, right here in the mud. But something inside me refused to fold. My hands moved on instinct, ripping open the radio pack. Fingers tracing wires I'd studied in the dark of the barracks when no one noticed. I remembered the manuals, the diagrams, the hours of silent practice. Give me 30 seconds, I muttered. We don't have 30 seconds, someone snapped. Colin sneered. Let him dig his own grave. Maybe we'll get lucky and bury him in it. Laughter again. I tuned it out, focused on the task. Sweat dripped into my eyes, static hissed in my ears. My heart hammered like a drum. I twisted wires, stripped insulation with my teeth, prayed the fix would hold. Then, life. The radio crackled to life with a burst of comms. Command, this is Alpha Squad. Coordinates incoming. My voice was steady, calm, like it belonged there. Silence fell around me, broken only by the chatter of the radio coming through. Ramirez grinned faintly, muttering, Damn. Relief washed over the squad. We were back in the fight. Colin's smirk faltered for the first time. He said nothing. For once he had no words. But the day wasn't done. We pushed deeper, the exercise relentless. The mud thickened, hills steeper, every recruit running on fumes. Then it happened. Colin's favorite recruit, Stevens, twisted his ankle coming off the wall. He crumpled, screaming in pain, clutching his leg. Colin shouted, Leave him! We don't have time to babysit! The squad froze. Leave him? It didn't sit right, not with any of us. But Collins barked louder. Move! The hesitation cut like a blade. Stevens tried crawling, tears in his eyes. Before anyone could act, I slung the radio forward, grabbed him under the arms, and hauled him onto my back. His weight pressed me into the mud, radio straps digging into my chest, but I stood. Every muscle screamed, but I moved, step by step. Slow at first, then steady. What the hell are you doing, Brooks? Collins shouted. I didn't answer. I just kept going. The squad stared, stunned. Ramirez stepped in beside me, covering my flank. Others followed. We moved together. Formation reformed around me. For once, no one laughed, no one mocked. The silence was respect, heavy and real. Collins barked again, trying to seize control. You'll kill us all moving that slow. But his voice cracked. The authority in it was fading, slipping through his fingers. By the time we broke through the final ridge, sweat-soaked and gasping for breath, the cadre instructors were waiting, clipboards ready, eyes sharp. We staggered in, Stevens still on my back, the radio still intact. The instructor nodded once, then checked his watch. Alpha Squad, fastest time today, no casualties, clean navigation, comms reestablished under fire. Outstanding. My knees nearly buckled, not from the weight, but from the shock of hearing it. Outstanding. The word felt foreign. The squad stood in stunned silence, their eyes darting to me. Colin's face flushed red, his jaw tight. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. For the first time, he had no insult, no ridicule, no control. Later, back at camp, the squad gathered around, buzzing with energy. Did you see him fix that radio? Carried Stevens like it was nothing. Their voices rose, not mocking this time, but amazed. Ramirez clapped me on the shoulder. Told you, you don't quit. His words were quiet, but the pride in them hit harder than any insult ever had. Collins lingered at the edge, silent, seething, watching the ground like it betrayed him. His authority cracked in front of everyone, and nothing would repair it. That night in the barracks, the air was different. The laughter wasn't sharp or cruel. It was lighter, easier. For the first time, no one knocked my tray in the chow hall. No one called me dead weight. I cleaned my rifle like always, but now others watched. Not mocking, curious, respectful. Collins still prowled, still sneered, but his words didn't land anymore. They had seen the truth with their own eyes, and once seen, it couldn't be unseen. I lay in my bunk staring at the ceiling, body aching, but heart steady. The insults, the humiliation, the long nights in silence. They had built this moment. They had shaped it. And now the squad knew. I wasn't weak. I wasn't dead weight. I was the one who carried the burden when no one else would. And deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. The tide had turned. My fight wasn't over, but from here on out, I wouldn't be fighting alone. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The morning after the field exercise, the barracks carried a different kind of silence. Not the heavy silence of humiliation, but something sharper, uneasy. Men who used to laugh when I walked by now shifted their eyes away, unsure of what to do with me. I could feel it. Respect, awkward and unspoken, but real. And I knew one man who hated it more than anyone, Sergeant Collins. At chow that morning, I carried my tray through the line. Scrambled eggs, toast, coffee, same as always. I sat at the far end like I always did, but this time no one laughed. No one knocked my food onto the floor. Collins stormed in, boots pounding on the tile, his voice booming across the hall. Enjoy it while it lasts, Brooks. One lucky stunt doesn't make you a soldier. His eyes burned into me, daring me to fight back. I stayed quiet, chewing slowly, refusing to give him the satisfaction. Then something unexpected happened. Ramirez, who'd always kept his head down, set his tray next to mine. He didn't say much, just started eating, calm and steady. But the message was loud. He chose to sit with me. Others noticed. Collins did too. His jaw clenched, but he said nothing. The tide was shifting, and he knew it. Later that day, the platoon gathered for review. Lieutenant Harris stood tall, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp. Yesterday's field exercise proved a lot, he said. His gaze swept the formation before landing on me. Private Brooks, step forward. My stomach tightened, boots heavy as I moved into the open. Collins smirked behind me, convinced the lieutenant was about to cut me down. This recruit saved the squad's comms under fire, carried a wounded man without breaking formation, and for that, he'll lead Alpha Squad in the next exercise. The words hit like a shockwave. A murmur rolled through the ranks. My chest thudded so loud I thought they'd hear it. Collins' face froze, his smirk collapsing. His voice broke the silence. Sir, with respect, this is a mistake. Brooks isn't ready to lead. The lieutenant's eyes locked on him. That's not your call, Sergeant. That's mine. Collins' face turned red, but he swallowed his words. For the first time, his authority cracked in front of everyone. Back in the barracks, the squad buzzed with quiet talk. Some still avoided me. Others stole glances like they weren't sure what to make of this new version of Brooks. But when I sat down to polish my boots, something strange happened. One by one, a few of them joined me. Not all, not even most, but enough. They sat cross-legged on the floor, rifles and rags in hand, working in silence beside me. It wasn't friendship, not yet, but it wasn't mockery either. It was acknowledgement. Brotherhood in its first fragile form. That night, Collins made his move. He stood in the middle of the barracks, voice low but venomous. Don't think one good day erases weeks of failure, Brooks. Men like you don't lead. You drag others down. And the lieutenant? He won't see it until it's too late. His words were sharp, meant to cut deep. The squad went quiet, waiting to see what I'd do. I met his eyes, steady for once. You've been waiting for me to break, Sergeant, but I'm still standing, and I'll keep standing, whether you like it or not. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The barracks shifted. Collins looked around, realizing the silence wasn't with him anymore. It was with me. For the first time, the squad didn't laugh at his insult. They didn't back him up. They just watched. The power he'd held for so long slipped through his fingers. The next day sealed it. We stood in formation at dawn, dew still clinging to the grass. Lieutenant Harris gave orders for the next drill. Brooks, you've got point. Your squad follows your lead. I felt the weight of every eye on me. Collins glared, his jaw tight, but he said nothing. Ramirez gave me the smallest nod. Quiet but sure. I called cadence. Voice rough at first, then stronger with each word. 1, 2, 3, 4. The squad answered back. Loud, unified. And Collins? He had no choice but to fall in step behind me. That was the moment everything changed. Not the radio repair, not even carrying Stevens out of the mud. It was this, standing in front of men who once mocked me, leading them while the man who tried to break me marched silently in my shadow. A reversal so sharp it cut the air. And though Collins still wore his stripes, everyone knew the truth. Respect had shifted. Power had shifted. That night, lying in my bunk, I stared at the ceiling and felt something I hadn't since the first day I stepped into this place. Peace. The battles weren't over, the tests weren't done, but I wasn't the outcast anymore. I wasn't invisible. I was part of something, and I had earned it. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The final week of training came fast, but it carried a different weight. The air around the platoon wasn't filled with the same sharp laughter it once was. It was quieter, heavier, like everyone was waiting for something to happen. Even Collins, who never missed a chance to tear me down, had grown cautious. His insults were shorter, less confident. He knew he'd lost the squad, but he hadn't lost his pride. And pride in a place like this can make a man dangerous. Morning parade was the last formation before graduation. We stood shoulder to shoulder, boots lined, uniforms crisp, rifles gleaming. The flag climbed the pole, snapping in the wind. My place was no longer at the end of the line. I stood at the front, the squad behind me, waiting for my call. Collins marched past, his jaw tight, pretending not to notice. I saw it, though, the way his eyes flicked toward me, burning with the memory of everything he'd lost. When the lieutenant gave the order to begin cadence, I opened my mouth. The first words came rough, then stronger, echoing across the field. 1, 2, 3, 4. The squad answered loud, steady, unified. Their voices shook the ground. Even Collins had no choice but to join in, his voice drowned out by the men who once laughed at me. That was the reversal. Not me shouting louder, but them choosing to follow. Him, the man who tried to break. Me, forced to march in rhythm behind the soldier he once humiliated. After parade back in the barracks, the shift became undeniable. The same soldiers who used to knock my tray, who called me dead weight, now stopped by my bunk with quiet nods. Some offered half smiles, others simply sat nearby, cleaning their rifles, sharing the silence. It wasn't about apologies, it was about respect, earned the hard way. Ramirez walked over, sat on the edge of my bunk, and handed me a canteen. "You made it," he said softly. I shook my head. "No, we made it." He smiled then, small but real, and it said more than words ever could. That night, the barracks were alive with the usual sounds. Boots clanking, low conversations, the smell of polish and sweat. But something was different. When Collins passed through, his authority didn't fill the room anymore. No one jumped to laugh at his jokes. No one lined up behind him. He was a sergeant in name, but a ghost in presence. His power had shifted, and he knew it. The silence that once isolated me now isolated him. I lay back on my bunk, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow above. My body ached from weeks of punishment, but my chest felt steady. I thought about that first day. Boots too tight, laughter cutting like knives, Collins standing over me, telling me I wouldn't last. And I thought about now, the nods, the cadence, the silence that finally worked in my favor. The journey from humiliation to respect had left scars I'd never forget. But it had also carved something stronger. Resilience. As lights went out, I whispered to myself, respect isn't given, it's earned. Through discipline, through sacrifice. And for the first time, I believed it. For the first time, I felt it. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The last image I want you to hold on to is this. The platoon standing tall under the rising sun, the flag snapping in the wind above them. Private Brooks, once the outcast, now stands at the front. His boots are caked with weeks of mud, his uniform worn but sharp, his eyes steady. One by one, his squad mates turn toward him, not with laughter, not with ridicule, but with silent nods of respect. Even Ramirez, the quiet ally from the beginning, offers a salute that carries more weight than any medal. And behind them all, Sergeant Collins, once the loudest voice in the room, says nothing. His silence is the final admission. No words needed. The power has shifted. The underdog stands tall. That's where the story leaves us. But the lesson runs deeper. Injustice is real. Prejudice is sharp. Humiliation can cut deeper than any blade. But dignity survives if you hold it close. Respect isn't handed out. It's earned through sweat, through silence, through sacrifice. Actions speak louder than words, and in the end, it's not the insults people remember. It's what you carried on your back when no one else would. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and sometimes the very stones others throw become the foundation of your strength. This story is about more than one soldier. It's about brotherhood forged in fire, about the quiet endurance that turns weakness into steel. It's about finding honor not in titles or rank, but in the resilience to keep standing when the world says you can't. If this story struck a chord with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button to show your support and subscribe so you don't miss more stories like this. Stories about resilience, sacrifice, and the quiet strength that binds us together. Until next time, stay strong, stay steady, and never forget, you're never standing alone.